Beyond Words. Yes. Marriage Story Edition. How you doing, Omar?
T Jizzle and the Hizzle.
Yes, T Jizzle and the Hizzle, along with the O Mizzle, the original OG O Mizzle.
Yes, that's me.
First of all, real quick, Omar, how's your day going, man?
Pretty good. It's pretty good.
Yeah, another day of, even though France is opened up, you are staying in a little bit longer, correct?
Yeah, we actually can't really shoot like before June because of all the things you have to be careful about, and shooting you have many people and stuff. So we have to still stay in a bit before we
Okay.
can do stuff. Yeah.
Okay. And here I think things are slowly opening up, but we also got our county extended the stay-at-home orders. I don't know exactly what that means because everyone seems to still be getting out there. But I'm just hoping things are getting better slowly. I know it's going to take time, but I hope this thing dies out quick because it's not necessarily the change of life for me. For me, it's the health, and I don't want, I don't think we know enough about this COVID-19 yet. So I'm just hoping we're being precautious and doing our best. Omar, let's get right into it, man. And I guess we should say hello to everyone who's watching, and we should present a question to them to start so that we can get a dialogue going. I'm trying to think of what kind of question we can ask. So Omizo, if you have a question, just put one in. But I will start with this. I saw Marriage Story. I had heard about it. It's a movie that's on Netflix. It was very well received by at least the Academy and the people who are critical on movies. I'm blanking on that term, but it's been a movie that was well received, and I actually enjoyed it. It was tough to watch at moments, but I enjoy it. And for me, as I've said many times before, for me, what the criteria is on a movie I enjoy is one that makes me think, one that kind of makes me, just changes my thought process. And I don't think the movie completely changed me or anything, but it just reminds me of certain things. And really, to flat out say it, it reminds me of the devastating effect that divorce and when relationships can go wrong, what can happen to everyone in their life. I thought the performance from Adam Driver and Scarlett Johansson both were fantastic. I loved Ray Liotta in it. I liked all the actors actually, which I'm learning more and more is a huge criteria for a great movie. You got to believe the characters, and I think both of these did a great job. Omar, real quick before I keep going, I want to know your perspective on this movie. Did you like it?
Yeah, actually, I love it. And you know what's funny, TJ, is that when I look at it, I actually can't relate to anything that's happening in it, because I haven't been through any of that for sure.
Yeah.
So I can't relate. But what I found very interesting is that you don't see often this kind of movies where it kind of shows you reality, and just these two people going through life and how it is, and seeing the backstage of a divorce and how bad it can get, and sometimes you're thinking like, maybe I was just thinking this for the whole movie, if they just talk to each other instead of going through all these different peoples who just want the money, it would just been better for some reason. And I thought the movie was great. And I'll just finish on this. Scarlett Johansson and Adam Driver, they're known for being in these big Marvel movies or Star Wars movies. And I think this kind of movie showcase that real talent as an actor, an actress, that we don't really see in those kind of movies because they're different. They're not made for that kind of performance. So I'm hoping more people will now see through those actors what kind of performance they can give when they have the right story.
Well said. And they're both, I think early in their career, they're both were respected and, really respected actors. And then, like you said, because they became even more popular with their fiction roles,
Yeah.
they may have, a lot of people may have lost sight of how good of actors they are, and that was cool to see them doing their thing.
Yeah.
Now, I want to add to something you did say, though, Omar, because you're 100% right about if they would have just communicated, um, you feel like everything could have been solved and at least done in a better way that would have been less damaging to the family.
Hmm.
And, it's one of those things where a couple of things, what's so interesting is when people get into these situations, they cut themselves off from each other. They stop
Yeah.
seeing themselves as partners and friends and start seeing each other as the enemy. And the sad thing is, even if it's not coming from inside, oftentimes outside influences will paint the person that way to turn you off of someone. And what I actually really enjoyed in this movie was, and I'm not a lawyer, but I actually enjoyed the portrayal of the lawyers, because I know all lawyers aren't like that. At least I would like to assume not all lawyers are like that. But in essence, in this kind of situation, I think there needs to be more of a push to figure things out without lawyers. Um, Even with mediators, before it gets to that stage. And I think it's kind of like the food industry. We've been pushed that if you're getting divorced, you need a divorce lawyer. We're so quick to run to things. And one thing I love that was presented is all this lawyers. It's going to be such a war that you're going to both be off probably in a worse situation than you should have. And who's definitely going to get affected is your child. With the handing off from one parent to another, I understand that's very normal for many people, but what breaks my heart is the lack of, like, the inability to save for college, because all of that funds went to lawyer fees. And the lawyer portrayal in this movie was so well done, because it was just a walk in the park for them, something they do every day. It was their job. There was no really emotional attachment. It was just like, oh, you're gonna see, this is how it goes. And I thought that portrayal was really strong.
Yeah.
Couple of things real quick. When Leota, I know that's Adam Driver's character, Charlie's lawyer, when he first interviews the lawyer, and he tells him that he's going to bring Nicole's mom into the divorce case to make Nicole look worse, so that he has a better chance of winning more custody and more rights. I love the response of Charlie saying, "No, Nicole's family is my family." That was his exact quote. "Nicole's family is my family." And the lawyer responds with, "Yeah, but that's going to change." And that broke my heart in a bit, because it's like, I understand things are going to change, but I wish there was a way where it didn't have to change. And to me, the one who gets, yeah, it was sad. Like, I know you saw this, Omar, because you're on all these details, but there was a part where Adam Driver looks at pictures in his grandmother, in Nicole's mom's house, and he sees a picture of him and the family, and he's very much a part of the family, and she's embraced him as a family member. But after the divorce, there were no more pictures of him.
Mm.
And you could see on his face, it stung him. And that was obviously a hard thing to watch, and a hard thing to watch, like I said, because I can kind of relate to that. Not for me, but I'm a son of a divorced family, and you went from a loving relationship to one where both parties don't even really speak. That's so difficult for a child.
Mhm.
And like I said, the adults, you could see it in Adam Driver's face. It stung him, but to me, it really affects the child. And the child may not be able to say it. He may not be able to articulate. And I thought this movie did a pretty good job of showing that we have to try to make sure we're cordial with each other if we do end up separating. And we have to always, and I love how they found that balance, because there's moments where they're arguing and fighting, and there was moments where there seemed like there was a lot of respect for each other. And I thought it was well done.
Speaking of lawyers, let me see if you remember this scene. There's just one small scene, well, it's a detail in the scene where they're around the table with all the lawyers, and they're speaking about all these hard things and who's going to keep the child and everything. And you feel like it's a hard situation for both of them. And at one point, they're just like, all right, what are we going to order to eat?
Yeah.
What do you want? And they just like disconnected from the whole situation while Adam Driver and Scarlett Johansson was still in it, and that just small part, I loved it because it shows that they don't really care.
Yeah.
They're just there to, get the money, do their job, and they're not really there to understand what's happening.
Yeah. And that's a great scene, Omar, because another thing that I noticed, it showed the routine of it. Like I forgot the name of the restaurant they ordered from, but everyone was like, "Oh, I love Manny's," or whatever it was. And they had no clue what that restaurant was, and they already knew exactly what they wanted. It was just part of their routine. Where for our marriage couple, they were, in new territory, and you could see the lack of comfort in their situation, but they felt like they had no other choice. And what was cool about that scene too is how she had to order for him in a sense,
I like that.
because either he didn't know or his mind wasn't there, but either way, there's still a bond and a connection. And I think even post-divorce, that's something that's kind of cool and something that should be respected, especially if there's kids. And again, I have to say this because there may be some relationships out there that ended in divorce that weren't healthy, that were maybe some type of abuse, whether that's physical or mental, or and that's a different scenario. Obviously, if there's someone that's bringing you down to the point where you're not in a great mental state at all, then maybe that is the right thing to disconnect, especially if you don't have kids. But I think there's a kind of a responsibility for all parents when you have kids to try to keep things as cordial and try to keep some type of connection with your significant other. And what was another cool thing I found about the movie was the intro starts off where they're listing things that's great about the other. And there's really nice music. I think it was just the violin, but it's very relaxing music, and it's very harmonious, and it was very pleasant. And then the music stops and it goes right into like contentiousness, right into issues. And then I love that strategy from the director. And then it closes the same way because ends up reading the letter that she wrote about all the great things about him. And what I loved is you could see, again, it's the son who's bringing this together, and the son drives this feeling of emotions from their parents about how they felt about each other, not even as parents, just about their union. And I liked it because you could see on his eyes, he starts to cry. You could see the pain in his eyes, and he never turns around. But you see Nicole, Scarlett Johansson's character, in the back, leaning in the doorway, and you could see she's teary-eyed. And I just found that very powerful because they don't see each other in that situation, but there's still some type of love for each other. And it was just cool to see.
And that was the question I was going to ask you. I know that's something you listen to when you watch a movie. So what do you think about the score of the movie? Like how they used it on each scene? Sometimes it was very quiet. Sometimes, like at the beginning, it was very, all the violent stuff. And what do you think about it?
I liked it. I mean, I enjoy it. I like when scores have a character. I told you that with Uncut Gems. I remember telling you right after I saw it, I really liked the score of that movie. I like when scores have a character. I don't know what other word to use, and I was actually surprised Randy Newman did that score. And he did the Toy Stories, I believe. I shouldn't say I believe, I'm pretty certain. But he's obviously a talented person, and I would have never guessed it was a Randy Newman score. So that was cool to see. But music plays a huge role in your emotions, and I think for any great movie, you got to have a great score, and I think this one does its job as well.
Yeah.
I have another thing I want to share real quick, Omizel. Is it okay? Okay, I guess I should ask this question because this is actually a really good question. So I'm gonna ask this question. In your opinion, Omar, is it okay to still talk to or see a family member's ex? So like in the situation where this was a question I actually wrote somewhat early when I was watching the movie, and I'm curious to know what our viewers think. Is it okay? Like Nicole's mom was like, "I love Charlie. I don't, he's part of my family." And even though Nicole was saying we're getting divorced, he can't always be part of your family. Leave him alone. And then Cassie was, you could see there was a great bond. Is it okay to still have a relationship with a family member? With the family member, you know what I mean?
I know. You know what? That's a hard question because here's the thing: the only person that's going to bother is the person with who you had the real relationship. So if that person's not comfortable with you seeing the mother, the brother, whatever, I would respect that. Now, if she is comfortable and we've always been family, that's another situation. So I would probably respect the what the person wants. If she doesn't want me to see the family anymore, I would understand. And the other way around. That's how I would go.
Whose choice is that?
I think that's so. Let's say Scarlett Johansson's family.
Yeah.
Sorry, I don't remember her name.
Nicole.
Nicole. Donc, if she doesn't want the Adam Driver to see the family, I would respect that because it's her family.
So, but if you're Nicole's family, you're saying either side, whether you're Adam Driver or if you're Nicole's mom.
And if I'm Nicole's mother, I would have to respect Nicole's decision because she's what made the connection between both.
Yeah. So, and I agree with you, Omar, but what I find interesting is I think what a lot of people don't understand, especially again, I'm talking about a marriage like this that at one time seemed great. When couples get divorced, it's not just their union that has to deal with it. It's the extended family that is also getting divorced and going through some type of grief and loss. And I liked how that was all showed in this movie. And I don't really remember a movie tackling that or this issue like that, that's why I think that's why I really enjoyed it. Another thing I wanted to say is researchers estimate that 41% of all first marriages end in divorce. I don't know if that's just in the US. I do know this. Let me show this as well. I did some research. I know that is a lot. And I know this, I don't know if this chart is just, actually the currency, but look, so we can't see what it says, but I think it says marriage rates or divorce rates with the highest, I don't know, but it's rates with the highest crude divorce rate. So Russia, Belarus, Gibraltar, United States, those are the top four. And the US is way up there. I don't really see, I see Belgium up there. I don't see France on this list. I don't see other European countries. There's Sweden and Finland and Denmark, Portugal, Hungary. So I guess there are many, and I see Switzerland. But my point is, it's like, I feel that the US being that high does not surprise me because I feel, and I always say this to you in our personal things, I feel we as Americans can do a better job of realizing what's really important in life and respecting what's important in life. And I feel, I don't know if it's the Hollywood aspect, I don't know if it's just the capitalism aspect, but there's such a drive for career and that kind of thing that we lose sense of what our first focus should be, and that's really family and happiness.
TJ, I have a question for you before I forget it. You're married. What made you sure that it was the right person? At what point did you know? How did you know?
So, this is going to take a minute, but this is a good question. I grew up a lot of divorce around me to the point where I had such a negative taste in my mouth about marriage. I used to swear to people I would never get married. I used to tell all my friends I would never get married. It was so bad for me that when we'd go out to like high school parties and people would drink and things, and I didn't do that. So I would say, I'm not going to drink. And there's like, come on, man, one day you got to drink.
Yeah.
And I said, the day I get married is the day I will drink, meaning I'll never drink. That was my mind. That was a saying I had.
Yeah.
And what's funny was many years later, when I did get married, those same friends made me have my very first drink. So I did honor that bet.
What did you drink? Do you remember?
Yeah, it was a apple. I can't even say the name. Let's see.
Was it? What, did they give you something strong?
No,
Or
no, 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 no. They it was soft. It was a fruity drink. It was soft. Like it wasn't a mimosa. I can't. Oh, you got me thinking. I don't know any of these alcohol drinks.
But you do remember if you liked it, right?
Midori sour, something like that.
Did you like it? Not really.
Not really. I mean, I went right back to my Coke or Pepsi or whatever I was having on my wedding day. But the point was, I never wanted to get married. I didn't see enough positive examples. And like I've said many times, when my parents divorced, that was one of the hardest things I've ever had to deal with. It took a lot out of me. I'll never forget it. Hearing my parents argue and not get on the same page was not a good experience. And I never wanted, even when I had Royal, I used to tell Francis, I don't want to get married. I don't want to, and it was really not understanding the beauty of marriage. It was just seeing all the negative aspect and only knowing that. Mm-hmm. So we had Royal as friends. And Francis was coming off of a divorce. So it was very, that's how we wanted to live our new way of living, just as partners, as friends who are raising this kid as best as we could. And then one of my close, dear friends, who's like a big brother, Louis, got married. And that was the very first time I saw marriage different. I saw the beauty of the ceremony and the love that was in between them and their families. And just for that moment, I mean, I don't know the status of the families and if there's drama. I'm sure there's drama, like there's drama in every family. But that night was so beautiful to me. It changed my perspective. Still, that was probably 5-6 years into, or maybe 4 or 5 years into me and Francis's relationship. And it still took me another 3 years to propose, in 4 years. And again, it wasn't something, after I kept going to marriages, I started seeing more positive signs of it. I was doing more reading. I matured. And today I'm happy as can be. And I see the love and beauty of marriage, and I see the strength of it. And, so I don't know if I answered your question right, Omar.
You answered it perfectly. So, okay. But it leads to another question before we maybe take this.
Yeah.
Angel. So what is the beauty of marriage? So what would you say the beauty of marriage is for people out there asking?
Yeah, and we should be asking that to people too. I think the beauty is the beauty of marriage. I'm just typing that in real quick. I think the beauty of marriage is friendship, is support. It's being there for each other. It's belief, it's confidence, it's love and friendship. I think I've said the same thing over and over, but that's what it is to me. It's support, friendship, and communication. It's the person that has your back 100%, where you can bounce ideas off of. When you're down, you can go to. And I think that the key to a healthy marriage is great communication. That's another question I want to ask, is what is the key to a healthy marriage? What is the key to a great marriage?
Because marriage, and I'm just asking, because marriage doesn't make a difference. Like, it's just papers, right? Like, if I go that way, it's just paper. It's just a big day where everybody knows you're together, even if you already are together. So what is the big difference?
Yeah.
Knowing that you are officially with papers signed together, and in the other way.
Omar, you sound like me when I was younger. Because I used to say the same thing.
No, but I have the same thinking that you said when you're young.
Yeah.
I don't believe in it, but
yeah, I understand. And that's where I was. I was like, what's the purpose? There's no difference. We're living together. I love you. I jump in front of a car for you. We have everything the same. What's yours is mine. So what is the difference? Mm-hmm. So that's how I used to be. And I've kind of matured or graduated to a different mentality. Mm-hmm. I think a couple of things. I think the first thing is your wedding night is literally a very, very magical, irreplaceable night, irreplaceable day.
Mm-hmm.
It's the day where you officially say, till we die, we are going to be together and I love you. And I think it's a healthy thing, and it doesn't have to be an expensive thing. I think the idea of having that union with your loved ones and those that mean something to you surrounding you and being there for you is incredibly worth it and worthy of marriage. That's one piece of it, because I think it also, if you're gonna, especially if you're gonna have a family, I think it represents to both a son or a daughter that you have to be committed, and I understand that if a youngster was gonna a young man wanted to be with a woman forever, why he
Mm-hmm.
would say, I don't feel like I need to get married. I understand that, but the truth of the matter is, when you're married, it locks you in even more. And if you're going to commit to a person that you love, I think that commitment needs to be made. Now, saying that, I think that can't be rushed. If that takes 9 years for you to get to 10, 15, I think that's long, but I'm not the one who's going to tell you when your time is, but I think it needs to happen if your desire is to be with someone forever. And I actually appreciate how, at least here in the States, the government gives more benefits to married couples in that sense. Not, I'm not a accountant, and I don't know how much more beneficial it is, but there should be some perks for that, because I think it makes people stay together longer, and it brings more union and
Mm-hmm.
happiness. And I don't know, there's something beautiful about saying my wife and my husband, I think. I do, and I think, Omar, I think your question and maybe how you think is very, very normal. I was there for the longest time, and it wasn't until what prompted me to go to the marriage was someone I really respected, and I tell him this, was Corey Rooney, um,
Mm-hmm.
a Grammy legendary producer, but more important for me, just a great guy who I looked up to,
Mm-hmm.
who had a marriage, a beautiful marriage, a family. And I remember him so clearly saying to me, he called me and he's like, dude, what are you waiting for? And I was like, what do you mean, what am I waiting for? He's like, you and Francis, man, you got a great girl. Why aren't you marrying her? And I didn't know what he was saying when he said, what are you waiting for? I didn't know what it was. So that's why I said, what do you mean? And then when he said that, it hit me. I was like, he's right. I'm not going to find anyone that's going to make me feel better and more complete. So it wasn't long after that I proposed, and we got married. And again, there's no regrets with that, and I thank him for that, because if it wasn't for him, I may still be just now getting married, or just now taking that step. And I'm happy I'm married. I am, and the key is, though, you got to find that person, because I can't say I don't foresee there being a situation like in this movie between me and Francis. But the one thing is, I know her well enough to know that we both will have our kids, no matter their ages, interests at first at heart, and we will do everything we can to make sure we communicate properly and make sure it's the right thing for each other. And neither one of us is greedy, so I think it would be, and we're, I think, smart enough to know not to let it get that route, because I think in this case, and that's again why I love this movie, neither Nicole or Charlie were greedy at first. They wanted to do it without lawyers, but just the way the flow of divorce happens, and next thing you know, there's lawyers involved, and it's a mess. And and I thought that was great. All right, should we bring Angel in?
Yes.
All right, Miss Angel, how are you?
Hello, Angel.
Good.
And you are rocking I see your obsession shirt. I like it.
Oh yes. I was gonna put on the hoodie, but I decided to.
Nice.
You look great. I love it. It looks good on you too, Angel.
Thank you. Oh my gosh. It's like, oh my god, I can't believe I'm alive with you guys.
You
I
are
love you
on.
guys so much.
You are with me and Omar. So I'm gonna ask you real quick. First of all, are you married?
Yes, I am married. I've actually been married for 12 years.
Cool.
I met my husband when we were 19. So yeah, that was at Universal Studios in Orlando at Mel's Drive-In. It's the place where the little cars are outside,
Yeah.
But yeah, that's how it all started. I mean, it started off as a friendship because just a group of us used to just hang out, and then eventually, hey, I guess we called each other and then, yeah,
Yeah.
it's been history from then.
And real quick, I'm going to add this because I DM, it's getting harder and harder, but I try to DM everyone in Instagram, and some youngster females, the sweetest thing, she asked me, there's a boy I like, what should I say and what should I do? And I told her my opinion is to become friends. It will take the pressure off if you just become a friend of that person and stop trying to be the boyfriend. It will take the pressure off. And I told her that I feel the relationship has to be incredibly strong as a friendship if a long-lasting relationship is going to work anyway. So I said, forget about boyfriend, just be a great friend to that person. And if it's supposed to be, it will be.
Yeah, you always get
Well
great
said.
advice. So yeah, that was point on. That's what I think. That's why I guess we're still together, because it started off as a friendship. It just wasn't just that, oh, that person looks so good and oh my gosh, I gotta be with that person. It was kind of just like you genuinely got to know each other, you know what I mean? And that's important. I think that's where a lot of relationships go wrong.
Absolutely.
Because you don't really get to know that person genuinely inside and out. So I guess that's why we've been.
What did you think about the movie?
I actually enjoyed the movie. I mean, it hit some points in the marriage because, hey, if we can all be honest, no marriage is perfect. If you say your marriage is perfect, then you're lying. but yeah, just the key factors, just looking like how she says, oh, like in the beginning when she was just like so caring toward everyone and stuff like that. She always looked out for everyone in a way that like relates to me because I don't know, I always put everybody and everything first. Then I forget about myself, but in a way it can be bad, I guess.
Yeah.
because taking care of yourself is important,
Mhm.
Absolutely.
So
and that's another good point because, I think a lot of times women especially feel their priority lies in the family and taking care of everyone else except themselves. And that is, to me, what's so beautiful about women is their nurturing and nourishing nature. But you say something that's very important. I think this is where we may have even gotten down this divorce road in the movie was you can't lose sight of yourself. You have to make sure you are fulfilling yourself and taking care of yourself to become the best you can be for your family. So I think that was great. One more question I have for you before we let you go, Angel. Omar, do you have a question? Because I have one more.
I'll let you go first, TJ.
Okay. We asked this to everyone, and I didn't get to see your response. What is the key to a great marriage?
well, I say there are 3 keys to a great marriage because without these, I mean, I don't think it will work well. You have to have communication, be able to talk to each other about anything, no matter what it is, no matter how hard it is to talk about it,
True.
and to be honest. I mean, be honest with each other. That's very important. And then the third key I say is trust. You have to trust because
Yeah.
if you don't trust that person, then everything just goes out the window. You're not really in the relationship because everything that they do or say, you're going to be like thinking that they're not being honest with you or that, you know what I mean? I don't know.
No, I think I think those are very, very great keys, and I think if you can do those 3 keys well, you will be on the right path and very likely have a great marriage. So I think that was a solid answer.
Absolutely.
Omizel?
Yeah. Hey, Angel. First of all, you have a great smile. Then I wanted to ask you.
Both of you do.
No.
Then I wanted to ask you, what would you say to someone who does not believe in marriage?
Someone does not believe in marriage.
What would you say, like, to give it a positive vibe about it?
Honestly, I wouldn't force marriage on people because I don't think marriage is for everyone. Because I've known some couples that have been together for years and have not been married. So I would not force marriage on anyone. I mean, I think it's a choice. So I mean, it's just what you believe because some people get married for religious reasons because they believe, oh, I have to marry that person if I'm going to be intimate with that person, if I can say that. But to me, marriage is your choice. It's what you believe in and what you want. But I would not push marriage on anybody. But that's just my opinion.
I think that's a great opinion.
Great answer.
It's a great opinion. And Omar, that was a great question, man. I appreciate that. Good one. All right, Angel. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
You were great. You contributed well. And I appreciate you joining us. Keep smiling. I love your smile. Your energy's on. So keep doing your thing. And I love you wearing that obsession shirt. It looks good.
Yes, and I'm going to order your latest merch because I love it.
Oh, cool. Well, the guy in the middle right here is the creator.
Yes,
Mizzle did his
awesome.
thing with that. So he's the one you should be thanking. All right, Angel, take care and thank you.
Awesome. All right,
Bye,
thank
Angel.
you. Bye.
She's there's some cool people.
Great energy.
Energy's everything, people. So if you take away one thing, especially if you're not a married person or you're a youngster and marriage is far away, energy. Have good energy. Have positive energy. Smile. And we could be going through difficult things. And I don't know Angel's life. She may be going through a lot of difficult stress, but you know what? I really believe that choice of being positive and energy will shorten the amount of suffering and stress in life. So try to always emit that positive energy.
I have a question for you, TJ.
Yeah, talk to me.
Just popped out. Okay, let's put a scenario here. What if you have someone who wants to marry so bad this woman, all right? But the woman does not want. She's in the position where she doesn't believe in it. She doesn't want it, but she still loves him, right? What would you do? What would be your advice for that man? Or the other way around for the woman?
I think barring religious reasons, that one I don't know the answer to. I don't know. I don't know enough about all religions to be able to answer it for some religions. But if religion was out of the equation, I think that's something that has to be communicated with each other. And I think if it's meant to be, a middle ground will be found, whether that's we're going to go ahead and get married, but under these kind of conditions, or we decided not to get married, but we're going to act and because for some people it could be as simple as having an anniversary date, a day where they have to themselves, where they can enjoy each other's, relationship. So for some, it could be as simple as celebrating a date, a specific date, but just not making it completely legal for whatever reasons.
Yeah.
So I don't know. That's a tough question, but I think it comes down to communication, and I don't think it has to be a communication you make on date one, but at some point it needs to be discussed. And I think communication is where, as long as you have an open communication without judging and trying to come to a great resolution, I think everything is possible to be resolved.
Yeah. TJ is like God. He's so wise.
You know what, Lena?
I like it.
I've experienced a lot. I've seen a lot, and I try to just watch a lot and learn. And I read a lot, and I always try to see it from the other person's perspective. And I think that's key with everything in life. You got to see things from other people's perspective as much as you can, and then go from there. But you know what? Another thing I thought was so fascinating about this movie, because there is one more question I want to ask, but the fact that marriage, weddings, a lot of people put so much money into it for that one night, and whether that's worth it or not, it depends, I guess, on your financial situation and what you care about. But what I found so fascinating is we always talk about the wedding costing X amount of money, but very often we don't talk about the cost associated with divorce. Because I can almost guarantee you the amount that was spent in lawyer fees exceeded the wedding fees. You know what I mean? And that is something I don't think was ever really mentioned, and what I would have done different if I was trying to mediate these, if I was the Nicole's mom or someone trying to get these two to not go this route this way. I would say, you remember that feeling of how much money your wedding was? There's a good chance it's going to be double if you go through lawyers. And that point was never really hammered home. It was obvious when he's writing the check for $25,000, which is ridiculous. That could have went to, you know, their son. And he didn't even use that attorney in the end, you know? So it's just the whole cost that the actual financial cost, not just at that moment, not just in the future, but at that moment is so severe. And I think that alone should get people to communicate more to avoid doing lawyers.
Yep.
This is a good another question. Do you think it's still hard for women to to choose their career and the job, or to balance the job, their career and the job of a mother? And do they often have to sacrifice one or the other? What's your opinion on that, Omar? And you're not a female, so
can you put back the question up just real quick?
I was just going to fine tune it a bit. Still hard for women I'm going to say to balance the career as a job. I'm going to say to balance.
I would say this, and again, I don't really know the answer to this because I'm not in their situation. But I think that once you have a child, you have to understand that your life is going to be about that child. That's going to be the priority. And you have to go into that knowing that it's not going to be the same again, because the child has to be the one you're going to bring up, you know. But again, to me, you can't balance both, but it's never going to be the same again.
I agree. I think that was well said, because I think a lot of times, you know, and I'm actually reading a book right now. I'm reading Stillness is the Key. And I should have been, if I knew this, Omar, you know what? I got to pull out a quote from this, man. So you got to buy me a second, because this is exactly the topic at the moment I'm at. It's talking about how a lot of people choose career or don't want to get married because they feel their career is gonna suffer. And he's making the point, my favorite author, and it was so cool because I was reading it outside and just very happy I was at that exact moment. But he makes the point that that's not necessarily true. He actually makes the argument that you can, you know, and he says something that's very powerful. He says something that, what's the purpose of achieving all this stuff, all this monetary wealth, all these accolades, if you can't share it with someone, you know? And if you're not going to share it with someone, what's the point of doing it? I thought that was profound. I know as an artist, you want to create stuff and there's legacies that can be left. But to me, one of the biggest prizes for what I do is sharing it. I was just talking about this yesterday, sharing it with my kids and my family, you know?
You know what's so funny about that? I'm gonna try and push that a bit further in today's situation. Let's say social media today's. People love showing everything they have. You know, it can be money, it can be cars, it can be whatever, jewelry. And I was always thinking, if they had nobody to show it to, would it be so important to them? You know, yeah. I know that if you have a kid, even if you couldn't show it to anyone, that kid will mean the world to you. Would it be the same for material stuff? So again, maybe value of material stuff only is valuable because of how others perceive it. That will never change for your child.
Okay, so I'm about to go through several different quotes from that book. And I was reading this a couple of days ago, and this is where the Kindle is great. I don't have my book here. I just have my notes because I highlight notes, and I have a tab where I can access my notes. So here's some great quotes from this book, Stillness is the Key. I mean, it's not a marriage book. It's just talking about how to live life well. And maybe it should be our next book, but we could discuss that. But anyway, here it goes. And even if, as some have argued, maintaining these relationships reduces a person's material or creative success, might the trade be worth it? It's talking about the love that you gain. Maybe that's worth the value, more important than any extra value you'd make as a career. Here's another great quote from that book. This is who is there who would wish to be surrounded by all the riches in the world and enjoy every abundance in life and yet not love or be loved by anyone? That was a Cicero's question some 2,000 years ago. And it echoes on down to us, still true forever. So 2,000 years ago, Cicero asked this question: who is there who would wish to be surrounded by all the riches in the world and enjoy every abundance of life and yet not love or be loved by anyone? The rapper here's another quote from the book. The rapper J. Cole, who's one of my favorites from today's rappers, he said that the best thing he ever did as a musician was become a husband and a father. There was no better decision I could have made. Then the discipline I put on myself of having responsibility, having another human being, my wife, that I have to answer to. And here's one more. Relationships are not a productivity hack. Though understanding that love and family are not incompatible with any career is a breakthrough. It is also true that the single best decision you can make in life, professionally and personally, is to find a partner who compliments and supports you and makes you better and for whom you do the same. Conversely, choosing partners and friends who do the opposite endangers both career and happiness. And that floored me because I believe wholeheartedly with that. I have a poster in my kids' rooms, in their bathrooms, where it says, talked about this too. Law is 20 rules to success. And rule number 1 is the single most important decision you can make in life is the person you married. That person is responsible for 90% of your happiness or 90% of your misery. And I wholeheartedly believe that, whether that's your career or personal, if you find that right person who you're supposed to be married to, your entire life moves up. I really believe that. And on the flip side, if you're up here and you find that wrong person, your whole life can come down. And that's something that I really wish people would see beyond the face, beyond the dates, beyond, sex, beyond all of that stuff. You got to see the person for the value that they are. And I think that's huge.
This is the book, by the way, if people want to know. That's the book the quotes come from.
Yes. I didn't know you got it, Omizzle.
I did, T-Jizzle, and it's in English.
Yeah. So and again, that guy, Ryan Holiday's the author. He's my favorite. I used to say he's in my top 3. I remember after reading this section of this book, he became my number 1 because he's a reader and he reads, I think, hundreds of books a year. He reads a book like a book a day, and he just writes a book on everything he's learned. So if you ever want to know how to become, I think, wiser, I think he would be a great place. I really do. And I was fortunate because he reached out to me and sent me that book. And I was super excited. I didn't get to read it. I'm now reading it at that time. But he's just been fantastic. And I love his approach to things because he doesn't just say things using today. He goes back hundreds and thousands of years to what was said then. And I think we can learn a lot by looking back in history. We don't have to take everything that history's shown us and make it the law. But I think there's a lot that can be learned if we go investigate and see what was on people's minds back then. Because I've said it before, I'll say it again. It's the elders who are the wisest. And, another great book was I said this before, I'm sorry, but like America's Wisest People. And it talks about the elders. The elders write that book. They're 70, 80, 90 years old, and they're the ones who've experienced life. And that's how you become wise. So embrace that and embrace what was before you. Embrace what was said before you. And I think that will help improve your life completely.
Yeah. Well said.
These are some great quotes. Omizzle, anything else you want to say before we close out?
I think we said it all.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to see if there's some, you know what? I think this kind of movie is not for everyone because it's not like a happy movie. It's not a feel-good movie. It's hard to watch, even if you can relate to it. But I think if you can understand it and go through it, it will make you understand certain things. Maybe it can even teach you what not to do. One thing you said that's very important is that at the end of the movie, the only thing I was thinking is why didn't you just communicate with each other? In a horror movie when you say, don't go left, don't go right, go that way. Here, just saying, just communicate. Don't let all these people decide for you. you know, and that's what's happening with the lawyers. They're deciding for the others.
Because you know what, and this is a quote, by the way, from the movie.
Mhm.
But you know what it is, Omar. It's and again, this was shown quite well to me in the movie. If you're paying attention, the lawyers are very comfortable. They know
Yeah.
exactly what to expect. They know
Yeah.
where our couple, our married couple, our divorced couple now. They're in this for the first time in their life. They don't know what to expect. So we are so trained to just trust the professionals and how it's going to be that we don't, I think there was even a point, it's like, why did you say that? You shouldn't have said this to them. And they had to watch what they were saying to each other.
Mhm.
And I don't think that's cool. I understand why why they were saying that, but I think the whole system needs to kind of shake, and I think it's going to have to start with movies like this and just opening a dialogue like everything else. I think we get comfortable in systems and we'll worry about that when we get there. It's like what my brothers and I do with DDJF. It's like we'll worry about how to deal with grief and loss when what happens to us. But I actually think even if you're not married, even if you're young, this is a healthy movie to watch. And even this review is a healthy thing so that you could become prepared in case that ever happens. I'm happy I watched it. I have no desire, or like I said, no thinking that I'll ever get divorced, but I'm still happy I watched it, whether it's for me or a family member or a child. I think it's healthy to kind of verse yourself in all of this stuff.
So to close it, what would be your favorite scene? What scene really moved you and touched you in this movie?
Well, you know what? I'll say this one first. I'll tell you the one that really hurt me. Was in the beginning. It actually really makes me sad because in the beginning, Charlie's character and the son Henry had such a strong relationship. When he'd sleep on the floor, Henry would come on the floor, and then he went back in the bed, and and it's like they played, and all that was so beautiful to me, especially as someone like me I love my kids and love my father, and it was been a dream always to be a great father for them. And then there was a time where the divorce happened, or they moved in LA and the divorce was happening, and he didn't really have any interest in his father, and I know kids go through moments where there's ups and downs, but this felt like it was due to the divorce, and it wasn't like there was another guy or any of that. It's just the separation aspect, the vibe of the house changed because of the divorce. And kids can feel that. And that broke my heart, because for someone like him, who's was such a great father, at least portrayed in the beginning of the movie, that stung, and even though I'm not experiencing that hurt, so that was probably the most profound, that one. And the end, the ending scene when he's reading the letter of what she had said to him, and the love that she had for him, and how that had changed, or how it wasn't the same. Those two scenes are the two scenes that really hit me.
Yeah, great scenes.
And what about you?
The fight scene, like in the middle, kind of like they're in a small apartment and they're trying to communicate to each other. I would say that scene to me, because the whole movie, is just like in that scene, like they're just saying to each other what they really think. And at one point, he kind of becomes like his father, like what he says his father was, and that's when he gets down on his knees and just cries, because he know what he just became to her, like being so mean. And he says, "I want you to die." That's what he says, and that was hard. So I really like that scene, and for obvious reasons also, is like the performance was so good. I don't know how they did it. I believed it. It was so good. I loved it.
Well, that's well said, Omar, and thank you again for suggesting this movie. I thought it was a nice detour and an important one for any of the couples out there, and anyone who plans on getting married at some point or not. I just think it's a good movie to watch and to learn about the process and to understand that communication. I think that's the message that this movie was about. Communicate. Communication is the key with your loved one. With that said, I think we should close this. Omar, thank you, man. To all our beyond word, all our izzles out there. Be ready for the second half of last lecture next Sunday. We'll be back at 11 a.m. and we will do finish up the book. Until next time, thank you guys. Adios and goodbye.
Bye.